It's a good morning again from Kampala here. You wherever you are. Kampala apparently today has been a bit chilly, and the weather in Kampala is becoming, one said, prespicious. It is becoming so prespicious that you wake up in the morning when it's raining, and then you cross in the next village, very dry and dusty. But that is Kampala. So we welcome you again to this program of Pan-African Friday, a program that comes your way from UBC here on Nile Avenue in the heart of Kampala. And for the next 2 hours, we shall be here discussing issues of interest, of concern to the people and the lives of Africa, both here at home and those outside of Africa. Apparently, last week when we went off the screen, we were looking at issues that make Africa what it is today. If we can have a state called Africa, if we can have a country under one political direction, a country, a state, government that is called Africa, as was envisaged in the ideas of the founders of this continent, the great continent, including the people, the names that you people, many of them, you know, who were key in propagating the idea. And over time, have these ideas died with them, or we shall still have a breed of Africans who will think like their forefathers did, as they thought and act in that context. So that is what we were looking at last week. But today we are making a follow-up on the issues of the conflicts. It's a big conflict, but it has been segregated number of clusters within the Africa-Arab world. And today of interest specifically, we shall be going back to Gaza and look at this conflict between Israel and Palestine, but also of the ramifications or the consequences or the implications on the African population. You know, this our immediate neighbors. We're having issues in Syria, we have issues in Lebanon, we're having issues in Saudi Arabia, we're having issues in all part or bigger part of that area. Do we Africans need to worry about that, or are we safe and dry at home? So these are some of the issues that we'll be looking at. My name is James Mtuta, and in the studio I'm joined by Rachel Tagali, the usual panelist. I'm also joined by Ndugu Rugarama, the man who keeps disappearing and being discovered. And finally, we also have Ndugu Otuko, who has not been with us for some time. And today we are here to look at this topic. As usual, we usually open up our week with what has transpired on this great continent of Africa, which, according to us, should be a beautiful country of Africa. And to do so, I'll begin with Ndugu Rugarama and Bwana Rugarama, Council Rugarama. You are welcome, and let's have what you have seen happen in this continent of Africa. I hope this time is not the complaint about the potholes in Kampala like last week, but the jam is back at its best. Part of the reason is because some of the roads have been blocked off and being repaired as we anticipate the NAM conference, which will be here next year.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mtuta. Good morning to our dear viewers, and good morning to Comrade Otuko and my sister Rachel. For Comrade Otuko, it has been a while, but we meet elsewhere. I hope I did apologize for the about 3 weeks when I was not here, but my brother,
that's okay, because
my brother Mtuta has got a way of, he keeps bringing it up. So for the very final time to our dear audience, my sincere apologies, but I was engaged in other related important government duties. Having said that, I will not take my eyes away from the poor state of our roads in Kampala, because it is such an important issue that must constantly be raised, such that the powers that be can really do something about it. And they shouldn't do it tomorrow. It is something like Dr. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah said about the unification of Africa. It is something that must be done now. The roads in Kampala must be fixed, and it is not tomorrow but now. What has been topical to me really is what the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs and the President General of DP, Chairman Mao, said then and has kept saying, and that is to do with truth, justice, and reconciliation. I join issues with him. I strongly feel that there is a way this country needs to heal, because a good number, a section of people are really not at ease. They may appear as if they are fine, simply because being fine is the thing to be said. But I doubt, for instance, that the wounds for our brothers in northern and eastern Uganda have healed. Probably they may think that there are another group of people who are responsible for what happened in that part of the world. I doubt that our sisters and brothers in the area of Kasese and the environs have healed. In a way, and of course, because we may try to look at the healing process and thinking it has got only to do with the wars that we have had in the past. But I want to believe that, for instance, there is what happened during at the apex of UPC, the Muslims who died, like for instance, in the areas of Kabohe, around there, then the masses that migrated and went to Chazanga, present-day Chazanga. So all that, in the country there has been a few, and NRM of course has tried its level best. So when it came into power, and the 10-point program, then the 15-point program later on. And when you look at the progress it has made in as far as bringing peace and security in the country. But I want to as my part of the week's observation, to join issues with Norbert Mao, that across the divide, social, political, economic, there is a need for truth. Because there is also growing tendency of entitlement.
Okay.
There is that entitlement. Some sections of the people are getting too entitled. So if we can sit down and say out the truth, say sorry to each other, like it was done in South Africa, then I think it will go a long way in healing our wounds.
Rachel. Karibu. I thought you were heading to Busoga by now.
Well, I'm putting the finishing touches on that, on that plan. Actually, you just touched something that I intended to put at the fore. For viewers across the world, we have an imminent royal wedding, and it should be on tomorrow. And the people of this part of the world are looking forward to a good story.
Oh, that will be a great story, of course.
After Ndugu Rukarama's lament.
but you know, Council Rukarama also tell you that until then, because I'm told the court orders, apparently no one has come up with a court order to say the marriage should not go on, but there have been some peculiar interests.
There was a notice. There was no order.
The intention.
Well, intention to what? To sue to... Anyway, we are keeping our eyes firmly on the ball. Dynamics that are beyond us are another matter, but we are keeping our hope alive.
Sure.
That nothing will stop this one from reaching a pleasant end.
Yeah.
Ndugu Mtuta, Busoga has waited for such a function for nearly 70 years. since the last Chabazinga was wed while on the throne. So it's a good time, it's a feel-good occasion surrounding kingdoms and chiefdoms have lent themselves to the occasion as far away as West Nile, good wishes, and even contributions.
That's
Buganda
great.
government, Buganda Kingdom is also very much in the picture concerning well wishes and other support. Bunyoro Kingdom is also part of the mix. So I think the move by President Museveni those many, many years ago, when he chose to reinstate the cultural, the kingdoms in this country, after Dr. Bote had dealt away with them, is paying off in the end. He actually is the chief guest at this function, I'm
Okay.
told. And I think he's there to actually savor the moment, to see that it was a wise choice for him to recognize the importance of culture, the importance of the people of this country, identifying with their roots. Of course, in excess, it can fracture the roots of a nation, but if it's done properly, it can propagate many values that are right and proper, and which we labor to espouse on this forum, year upon year, day upon day, and so on and so forth. So, Ndugu Mututa, this is an occasion for the people of Uganda to demonstrate that the cultures, different as they are, can find unity in such things as this union that is expected any minute now. But this is definitely a very Pan-African occasion.
Sure.
And so I congratulate the people of Busoga for this fantastic
Exactly.
target that they are reaching.
Oh, well, next time we shall find out if the
Or you wanted me to talk politics?
if the Chabazinga says only entitled to one wife, or
That's a different matter.
He's not entitled to one.
yes,
A king.
Are you Busoga?
A king. A king everywhere. Even in
a king has to be a
Not
king.
even Charles was entitled to one.
Did he,
I
did he
feel-
actually did he have one?
And yet they are the ones who brought this issue of one woman. And yet he wasn't satisfied with one. Well, what are we saying?
So the question becomes,
Let Chabazinga be. Whether one, whether 10, let him be. He's a king.
Like let's say, they have left men to be. So let men be.
Madam, Mrs. Museveni is on record saying let the men be.
Exactly.
So
Allow them to do what they want.
but I have not had the Busoga Kingdom say that as much, that let the man be.
Do they have to say that?
Well, that is something we'll find out. Maybe it will be said tomorrow.
They don't have to say it because it has to be.
Okay.
So there are certain things that you don't have to
They are
mention.
implied.
Exactly.
In other words, the contest by in
the
some,
being,
in some
the
quarters
embodiment.
is totally out of step.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ndugu
Well,
Atukwa.
the Busoga question is quite interesting, but my sister has addressed herself to it. I want to make a comment on the proposal by government of Uganda to construct, it's considering to construct, if you heard about it, to construct a road from Kampala to Juba. And I saw it caused a lot of conversation on social media. People were wondering how a government of Uganda can be able to think about constructing a road going to Juba when Kampala has issues.
Or to fix Munyonyo,
Oh, to fix Munyonyo.
because visitors are coming.
Visitors are coming. Well, I think, I think in my opinion, the concept of linking Juba and Eastern DRC is very profitable for the Republic of Uganda in terms of economics. And I believe that if we invested money in constructing a road from Kampala to Juba, that money can be recovered within the shortest time possible. Of course, to the public, you cannot assume to solve other people's problems when you have failed to solve your own internally. But economically, it makes sense because as Africa, We believe as a Pan-Africans, creating linkages between this city to facilitate trade. And I think I'm in total support of the proposal, although it is still in the early stages of conversation.
Sure.
The other thing that I noted this week, Comrade Mututa, was the conversation about the speed at which the economy of Niger is going to grow.
Wow.
There are a lot of changes that the junta government or those military, the so-called junta, have created.
Now the government.
Now the government.
Never mind ECOWAS.
Exactly.
Never mind ECOWAS. They have been able to say, if you want to process our coal, if you want to process our iron ore, if you want to process our minerals, you should come and invest locally. Industrialize, process from home, and we export finished products. This is a conversation that they're selling out. And I think this is what the President of the Republic of Uganda has been advocating for so many years, that we should be able to strengthen our manufacturing sector so that we can be able to process the materials that we have, the raw materials and the minerals and other items that we have as a country. And I think it is something that excited me, that away from the demonization of these coups, there is something positive to talk about, that these people are discussing about the progress, the economic progress of their republics, that is Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. And interestingly, most of these coup leaders meet and have conversations about these issues. And I saw about a month ago, the government of Burkina Faso had sent an emissary to meet the President of the Republic of Uganda. And I think we should be expecting a visit from the head of state there at the moment, anytime soon. So I think this is good for Africa, irrespective of the so-called democracy. We should be able to talk about resolving the problems of the people of Africa. And I think that's what I can say for now.
That's a very big discussion. I think again we shall have it at some point, because these so-called juntas,
yes,
when they took over, for those that have taken off the biggest part of West Africa now, it was a drive, it was a need from within, because other than which countries, only one country which we saw people coming in and pulling up Russian flags, but the rest have really been very critical and have been homemade. You were talking about Niger, for example, and they are saying, I think it was uranium. They were removing uranium from Niger, and they were paying them £8, but they were selling it at $20, $200. $200, yes.
Yes.
Now, and who is selling that?
France.
France.
France, yeah.
So you are only picking from me and giving me nothing actually. I think the £8 is only for labor for you to be able to do their work. And then they go and do the business.
Just ridiculous. Maybe.
But now they are saying,
yeah. Just on that very point you are raising, very critical. What we need to do on the African continent, and I think that is what the so-called junta governments are actually trying to do right now, is to realize our self-worth. The worth of Africa is supposed to shift from the catchword, potential, to actualization. Because you see, that Niger is arguably the third or the second largest producer of uranium.
Yes.
You see, we have France, which has been the leading,
yes,
the leading thief as far as uranium is concerned in Niger, after stealing that one of Uzakastin. And you know, of course, now the war between Ukraine and Russia, that stealing has been dealt a blow. Now they are concentrating on Niger. and they were concentrating on it, making sure that they heavily exploit it. If we can have the balancing of trade by way of saying, yes, fine, you can have the uranium, but at what price? Don't be a price giver and a price taker. We can negotiate. If Africa realizes that and makes trade, we are going to get the ball game right. And that concludes the other point which my brother Otuko also talked about, the strategic thinking and workings on the African continent. That the road from Uganda, I don't know, maybe Ugandan border, because we already have the road up to the border. If we put right that road, if we can open up Southern Sudan, because Southern Sudan, largely speaking, for us who have gone there, is not opened up. With the vast resources that Southern Sudan, like DRC, has, if it can be opened up, it doesn't have to be only Uganda. If we can have a joint EYACA opening up the Southern Sudan, then we are good to go. Although that does not take away the fact that we should fix Kampala roads.
I know you'd say that. No, maybe Kampala roads are bad because we have not been able to open up the neighboring countries. Because if we had trade, then we would have money to work on our roads.
Ndugu Mututa.
Surely.
That is a very strange argument. It really is.
But
Yes.
it could also hold water that
No.
to some
Yes.
extent that we may not be making enough money as a country
Yes, to be
that
able
is
to.
sufficient enough to deal with our home problems.
Okay, then how are you going to construct the Juba Highway? I'm thinking.
I'm borrowing from someone.
No, we
I'm
simply
thinking
we have a lot
it's-
of leakages.
it's-
really.
yes,
The
it's inefficiency.
Indiscipline is too much
Indiscipline.
in our governments, and there are so many budgetary loopholes and in financial leakages
And
in
massive
our government.
corruption.
And that we shouldn't miss words about it. I think we need to be more disciplined. Kampala roads can be fixed, like so many other social services can be extended to our people if we are being disciplined. Government officials with the responsibility to deliver services can do better.
Not
I
to talk
understand.
about budgetary allocations.
Exactly.
I mean, where are our priorities? Why?
Agreeable
How
to
come
that.
a capital cannot be prioritized? If, in fact, they say that most of the taxes in this country are paid around here, isn't it, even from just that point of view, why can't you prioritize the infrastructure of the golden goose
Yeah, because then we will have
that
to
lays the
starve.
golden
You-
eggs?
you will
If the
starve.
golden eggs are Kampala, why can't you prioritize Kampala?
Then you have to starve the other.
Well,
parts.
No, I'm not talking about starving. I'm talking about prioritizing. At least the roads. Because if most of your income is coming from Kampala, how come people cannot move around easily?
Yeah, but
Well, I think your argument is quite strong, but I listened to the ED KCCA
exactly.
when she was addressing a press conference on the day Minister of Finance released 78 billion for construction of Kampala roads. Her statement was, for the last 3 years, Kampala has been receiving less than 50% of what it
The
had
budget.
planned for. So the question now comes and
For
say,
roads,
for roads.
For roads only,
For
yes.
roads. They've
so
been
where is
receiving.
even the 50%?
They've been receiving, I think, between 35 and 45, according to what she stated in her
Yeah,
press conference
of the budget.
of the budget. So so you realize that there's been some problem somewhere between finance and KCCA, because if the money was released, for example, maybe we would be asking for total accountability of what the money has been doing. But if she's raising a concern as a leader of the city and saying, look here, we have the willingness, but we have
The
been
capacity,
constrained
yes.
in terms of finances.
Yeah.
Then the debate will shift to another level and
Yeah.
say, why has there been no money
No
released
money.
to KCCA? So these are
Maybe
conversations
it comes
that-
to her, what
Yeah.
she's saying, the priorities.
Yeah.
Because even within that 30-40% budget, again, the priorities also, I mean, when you look at cases, of course, it is wide.
Yeah.
But I know a lot has to be done, and maybe some things being done. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can move it from there to the next point, that we are looking at the Middle East. And this place has become a boiling potato. you have Libya on fire, you have Syria on fire, you have Lebanon, you don't know what is happening there, you have Jordan, you have, so what is happening here? Now, one would also think that these particular places are also known for violence. It has been, because there are many conditions in these places that are similar, but also it makes the shortage or the short supply of resources. When you look at this desert, the resources that can be accessible by the populations and the leadership in those areas. But you also look at the foreign interferences. The issues of religion also come in. Then the issues of the history of some of these places. Of interest today, we are looking at the issue now of the conflict. The recent one is the Gaza, the conflict, the Israel and the neighbors. The neighbors or the people there, what they are going through. Now, moments before we came here, I had a discussion with the ambassador of Israel about what is happening in the Gaza Strip.
Where?
And
Israeli ambassador to where?
the ambassador of Israel based in Nairobi for the region, because for the East African region. And I was asking him about the issues of occupation. What is happening with the Israel and the Palestinians? The insurgency, the conflicts, the violence is because Israel has not given these people a breather that they cannot breathe. But the man is saying, but we left anyway. I think we can have that interview, if it is possible, that segment where the ambassador is explaining what is happening there as of now, before we continue.
In 2005, there was no Israeli citizen, not an Israeli soldier on the land of Gaza since 2005. And by the way, until 1967, so between independence, 1948 and 1967, the Six-Day War, Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip. No Egyptian ever thought of giving the Palestinian a state. So I don't know if you heard me when I was reading from the Covenant of the Hamas. The question is, how do you get facts into someone who dislikes you or hates to begin with? You know, I'm talking with many people around in Uganda, in Kenya, in other places that we cover here, other countries, who love us very deeply. They are less concerned about the facts. They just love us. The same, on the mirror image of this, is those who hate us. So it's the facts are becoming irrelevant for them. Even this very simple fact, very simple, that we are not in Gaza from 2005, this is something which is not common knowledge. The fact that Gaza and the West Bank are two separate territories is not common knowledge. The fact that the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are at odds is not common knowledge. These are basic things that it's not a position of the Israeli government. You open every source of data source and you find out. So these basic facts will influence the narrative, but again, only if someone has the intention and the will to open up and listen to facts. So what I was saying is that, people, and of course the Hamas, put together occupation, Hamas, they make a Middle East salad out of everything. Because, you know, you would wonder what occupation is the Hamas talking about if we left Gaza in 2005. And the answer is very simple. And it is written in the covenant of the Hamas, which was published in 1988, August, and it says, Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews. When the Jew will hide behind stones and trees, the stones and trees will say, "Oh, Muslims, oh Abdullah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him." So when the Hamas talks about occupation, they don't speak about Gaza, they don't speak about Nablus or Bethlehem, they speak about Haifa, about Tel Aviv, about Tiberias, Nazareth. My apartment in Jerusalem is 2 kilometers away from the Nativity Church in Bethlehem. I can't go to Bethlehem. I'm forbidden. It's under Palestinian control, back from 1995. I can't go to Ramallah. It will be a one-way ticket for me. I can't enter Jericho. So there's a confusion. As I showed the map before, Gaza is here, a small strip. The West Bank is here. Now, if you want to talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the peace proposals that we put on the table in 2000, 2001, that's I'm willing to expand and to talk about it. But that's not the issue. The issue now is the terrorist attack of the Hamas on the 7th of October with no reason. I mean, we are out of Gaza from 2005. The only thing we had with Gaza is that we took tens of thousands of Palestinians from there on a daily basis to work in Israel, that we were kind enough to supply them. The only thing that took place with one hospital a couple of weeks ago, and the BBC and CNN, sorry for the non-diplomatic word, came down almost on their knees to apologize for misinforming the viewers, because it was what we said from the beginning. It was a failed rocket by the Islamic Jihad that exploded, that was aimed at Israel, exploded in air, debris fell on the parking, and ignited the few cars, not even the hospital itself. Should ask, not me, the Palestinian representative, why on earth do you hide among civilians? That's a war crime. Why on earth do you hide underneath a hospital? That's a war crime. Because distinguishing between military and civilian, that's the law number one, rule number one in the laws of war.
Because we're also reading that the Hamas have also dug tunnels in residential places, even in schools, and even in water. So it becomes very difficult if they're going to attack. It becomes very hard for Israel also not to protect itself. But also, Ambassador, we have, for quite some time, Israel has been having a very great time and friendship with the countries of Africa in terms of collaboration. Uganda, for example, here, we now have students who have been there on training and agriculture. But I also know that you have had collaboration in security training of some of the African operatives. Is Israel losing friendship with Africa? What is happening in the recent dispensation?
Well, my hope is that we don't lose anything, because at the end of the day, we have common challenges. In the 70s, we couldn't understand why on earth Baader-Meinhof from Germany and the Red Army from Japan and the IRA and Gaddafi and the PLO, what do they have in common? And we found out that what they have in common is killing. So you have your own challenges with terrorist organizations. Africa has its own challenges with terrorist organizations, Eastern Africa. And even where there is no direct contact, there is something as bad as direct contact. The inspiration. They see and they imitate one another. The attack of
Yeah, that is the ambassador of Israel based in Nairobi, who is explaining to us what is happening there. Now, I also wanted to and had to talk with the spokesperson of the Hamas. Apparently, I think he, at the last moment, the lines went off. I'm sure they were not bombarded, but
He was talking from Gaza.
no, he said he was at the border, so I don't know which particular border he was talking about.
He certainly recorded had been talking from Gaza.
Yeah, I said he was at the border, and he said after he leaves the border will be talking apparently, but we lost contact with him and we were not able to talk. That is the guy they call Abu Ubaida is the spokesperson of Hamas, and also I also got the leader of Hezbollah, who also said he can now not talk on phone because we had to get to him through someone. I think they fear that.
But phone coordinates can
Yes,
attract a missile.
yeah. So he didn't want to be exposed to a missile. But I think we'll also have their comments possibly in the next program, because we also want to see what they are saying about this conflict, so that the people, for us who are out, we can inform ourselves on the conflict, also have to form opinions based on that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this conflict has taken long. I think as long as Israel has existed and the Palestinians have existed, from day one we have had these conflicts. And at one point I was asking the ambassador what will be the long-term plan to this, and I think later he will come back to us with the peace. Can we have peace in this part of the area? He was explaining how peace has been hard to come by, and that the externals, the countries that support the Hamas and the countries that support Israel need to be brought on board so that they can sit down and discuss. Of course, when you talk of countries supporting Israel, you may not avoid talking about America. And if you, according to him, if you are talking about countries that are supporting Hamas, you are not going to leave out Iran and some of the Arabic countries. So this is the situation there. Now, when we come back here, we are looking at the implications on the population of Africa. First of all, do we think that Africa should worry, given this scale of conflict?
Worry, I think, would come from a continent that is not taking good notes from this situation. I think it's instructive, among other things, that the Arab nations, some of which you've mentioned, and by the way, Iran don't consider themselves to be Arabs.
Of course.
But anyway, you're talking
like the Turkey.
Anyway, those nations that are directly involved in this situation, whether in the background or in the foreground, it's instructive that the Arabs in particular have been moving away from serious entanglement with the military aspects of this confrontation. They've been working on this since the last major fallout in 50 years ago, and they have really built an existence that is quite apart from their major contentions with Israel and, of course, with the West. We in Africa, I think, have been slow to catch up with the fact that we also need to have, or to build resilience, they call it, to be able to function even in the middle of all kinds of contradictions. The Arabs have shown that they're light years ahead of where they thought they were, where we thought they were. They are able to move trade and other links quite apart from their political concerns. I'm thinking, Ndugu Mututa, that Africa should only be concerned if we are not moving to secure our interests quite apart from the interests of our partners. We have not been very good in, for example, separating ourselves from the interests of the West. The interests of America are not the interests of Uganda. Sometimes they're intertwined, but rarely so. In many cases, they overtake our interests. These Arab brothers and sisters of ours, over the last 50 years, they've been very, very hard at work to make sure that when they knew there would be such a thing. It's quite predictable, actually. And they have been preparing on the trade front, technological front, every front that matters, such that when the Palestinians are again assaulted by the Israelis and vice versa, Saudi Arabia is not crippled. UAE is moving on. Jordan is functional. We should also not be caught in the same place we were when Ukraine fell out with Russia, because we're not prepared.
And to have no food.
Yes, we have no food because Russia's at war
Miles
with
away.
Ukraine. No. You should have systems that can take you over the rough patches.
Exactly.
We have not been doing a very good job.
When we come back from the break, we will be listening to Ndugu Otuko and Council Garama over the same. But please don't go away. UBC, we'll stay with the UBC with more programs coming up. For us, we're still here and just going out away for this short break, and we'll be back shortly. So please don't go away.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
This PRENO, as the name prescribes, is the project for restoration of livelihood in northern region. So it was designed to support the population in order to implement the national programs of wealth creation, improving household income, and this is done through supporting agriculture, and by supporting agriculture, you support seed production, training of farmers, mindset change, and even it went ahead to have components of food security grants, whereby families were given grants to be able to improve their food security. But there was also community-based natural resources grants, which were given to families to put in place woodlots, which would help them to reduce on killing the vegetation and deforestation, looking for energy or for firewood.
Of the day on UBC.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Every Friday 9 p.m., it's one-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role as the owner of the country is not to, be preoccupied by giving credit to my server.
We have said that if we are to talk to General Museveni, there must be certain conditions in place.
Is it true that you paid 5 million shillings to MPs that voted for?
Was brought to you by MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Junko. Yo. What Chico? Check the shopping man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Junko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Yeah, welcome back after that break, and by the time we went for the break, we were looking at the situation, the developing situation. Of course, it's developed sometime, but keeps on shifting in the Gaza Strip. And we, moments ago, heard from the ambassador of Israel, who was talking to us from Nairobi, about the position that Israel holds in its conflict. Like I said, was not able to connect with the leadership of Hezbollah and also of Hamas, but we had kept in contact. But of course, for the reason is obvious, we could not we didn't have time to discuss, because I think there's the fear that a bomb can land while you are talking, so you are talking in bits and in codes. But anyway, that's what the Israeli ambassador is saying, and I think later on, like I said, we shall also have the positions of the Hamas and also the Hezbollah, because these are the parties that the active parties that are involved in this conflict. By the time we left, I think in Ndugu Otuko, you had a submission to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think picking from my sister Takari, what do we pick from there as Africa?
Sure.
I think it's, there is a lot that we can pick. I want to begin from the Israeli side. Having been in Tel Aviv for 6 months, in 2022. There is one thing that you can easily identify with the people of Israel: the spirit of patriotism. When this incident happened on 7th of October, the government of Israel called upon citizens who are willing to defend their country, and they were overwhelmed by the numbers. The people were coming from diaspora, over 70,000 people returned from the diaspora.
300,000 at least to date.
Yes. The 300,000 were both mobilized locally, and those that came from outside the borders of Israel who had been in the diaspora were over 70,000. These are people who are returning to defend their country. They abandon whatever they're doing to go back and say, we have been threatened as a people, and we have been threatened as a sovereign state.
Sure.
The question that comes into our minds as African people, in the event that we are attacked, for example, as Uganda, by Kenya, for example, how many Ugandans will be willing to go on the front line to defend their country, maybe without pay? Maybe without pay, because this is an emergency.
The entire opposition would support that actually we are not just overthrown as a government, but we are killed.
Actually, some Ugandans would actually be
celebrating
and joining the attacking force.
I mean, to add to your point, to add to your point,
Yes.
you can hold it without disorganizing your point. Yesterday, there was a video clip, and I think many of us saw the leaking roof of
one airport.
Yeah, of an airport in the neighborhood.
In the region.
And the Ugandans were saying, the first thing, yeah, look what has happened to our airport in Entebbe.
I saw.
Yeah, no, and it was discovered, actually it was not Entebbe, but someone could have that happiness,
yes,
that now this is how bad we are.
This is an opportunity
This is how
to
bad
expose
we are.
our country. Yeah.
Exactly. And in Israel, one of the areas is IT. You are only supposed to use your GB, MBs, wherever, in promoting what is positive about Israel.
Yes.
In any community, there will be the negatives, fine.
Yes.
But the negative, even at a household level, but the negatives are for the house.
Yes.
The positive is what the rest of the world should see, and I think that is very important. Now, an issue which you raise about Africa. Africans can remember when Gaddafi was attacked, it is common knowledge that Zuma, I think, was having a discussion in one of his places and saying, no, but the guy was so braggant. You are talking about a person who moments ago were friends, because I think Gaddafi used to frequent South Africa so much. And no wonder President Museveni was saying that when he called Zuma on what should Africa do in the event that they are being attacked, but he was calling a man who had already signed the declaration, the UN declaration to attack.
I think he was jealous.
Do you know how much money Colonel Muammar Gaddafi had advanced to Jacob Zuma?
As a person?
Yes, as a person or a level.
You know,
has that money been returned
at one show I said, whatever Zuma is going through, I'm not sympathetic. But that was to your point.
Are you trying to insinuate that the spirit of Gaddafi may have... So the point I'm making is that Africa has to learn something from Israel. A small nation with a self-determination to defend itself. And once people are called upon to go on the front line, you realize that people abandon their professionalism, being a doctor, being an engineer, working both within the country and outside Israel, to go back and first put on a uniform to defend their country. And it is something that we can be able to learn. The other thing that maybe contributes to that is a deliberate policy by Israel to nurture a population towards self-defense. And by that, they have what they call the National Service Program. And I think as Africa, we must be able to look into this program and make it compulsory for African countries, so that we can be able to nurture African ideology through from generation to generation, by ensuring that all of those that are above 17 years and also those that are in schools, it becomes compulsory for them to first have a duty to defend their country, to work for their country. For example, why wouldn't we introduce a policy, for example, in Uganda, that as long as you have finished university or any tertiary institution, you are taken for a national youth service program, and you are deployed to work for community, for the community. You are taken from Karamoja, where you are studying, and you are deployed in Kisoro, and you are working there for 1 year before you graduate, so that you can be able to understand and have a feeling and develop a spirit of ensuring that you know what your country is. In the event that we have any issue to solve, we can be able to solve that.
They will take you to court.
What will the
for the introducing, for forced labor.
What will opposition say?
Well, I mean, as long as we pass
exactly.
a law.
Again,
No, if you pass a law, it is a law.
We should be able to
This
pass
the
a
issue.
law.
Again, we're talking about patriotism.
Yes.
You remember the cadreship course military
The
for year 6?
Chaka.
Yes.
But was it a law?
No, that was a national
It was not a law.
Yes.
policy.
Yes, we are talking laws here.
And you see what you know.
But even before it comes to the law, exactly.
That law will be challenged.
Well,
Successful or not, but it will be challenged.
It is okay.
We are that polarized.
Yes, I think what I pick from Council Rugarama is that we have over-democratized our societies in Africa, beyond which we can be able to do things that would actually help us as African people. The other thing that you are able to learn from Israel is that their ability to mobilize partners across the world. You actually realize that Israel is doing things that are unacceptable. Bombing hospitals, bombing children. You can really see a suffering of the Palestinian people, the innocent Palestinian people. Much as the military wing of the Palestinian people, the Hamas, is what Israel is looking for. There is no justification beyond bombing those that actually did not participate in the attack. But of course, the other thing that we learn is that war is a very complicated thing. You realize that the Hamas tactic of using ambulances, hiding in hospitals, makes it also very complex for Israel.
Exactly.
But in such situations, there is one thing that you get from Israel: their determination to ensure that they go for the enemy, for wherever it is. That determination is what Africa must learn. And I think I relate that to what the President of the Republic of Uganda is doing by asking for permission from DRC to ensure that we go for ADF from where they are recruiting from,
exactly,
and where they are putting their bases, so that we can be able to cripple them. We may not be able to eliminate them because these are ideologies. ADF, Hamas, these are ideologies that you may not be able to kill now. It will move from generation to generation. And it is something that I've been able to pick. The other issue that we must pick, maybe as I end on that note, is the ability of Israel to develop its capability to respond to any attack. How prepared are African countries in the event that we are attacked? Sometimes I listen to opposition leaders in Uganda and also other people making conversations. Every time the president is talking about purchasing fighter jets, they think maybe we need these fighter jets for fun. This is a good example for us to learn from. We must procure as many jets as possible. We must procure as many fighting equipment as possible, because you never know. There may be an aggressor at some point. In the event that we are being attacked, whether during Museveni's time or post-Museveni, we must have the capacity to respond so that we can be able to defend Ugandan and African people.
Yeah, but because we are now having the East African force in DRC.
Yes.
The equipment rather, or whatever they are using, is from the countries that have sponsored.
Yes.
So when you have this equipment, does not necessarily mean that you are going to use it in Uganda.
Yes.
I mean, how many fighter jets will you need to fight this Panasonic one? By the time you take off from Entebbe, you are already on the border with the Sudan. So they may not be even very effective in the country situation. But you are looking at a bigger picture. So when we think of having roads across the countries, having markets across the countries, having this support across the countries, is very important for the survival of the African country. And like I think it was President Museveni also echoed it, if we are not going to stand together, we are going to perish together.
Yes.
Ndugu Lugaramu.
I don't know where to start. But anyhow, you see, I think the Israeli machinery has been so strong that when somebody, and it reminds me of the proverb that when a lie is told several times, it passes as truth. Israel, with her partners in crime, have managed to tell the lies so well because they have got the media, to the extent that now the lie has turned into the truth. Without risking going back in details about the history of Israel, I listened to your interview with the ambassador here, and with all due respect, you said something to do with independence, and that independence is what we call the 1948 creation of Israel. I don't know the definition of independence. They were getting independence from who? The state of Israel was getting independence from who? All I know is that before 1948, the occupying force was the British. They were the ones who were the colonial masters in the state of Palestine. As they were gradually leaving, it is at around that time, you remember, immediately after the 1944 Second World War, and then the creation later on when the entire Europe was very weak and Japan had been bombed, and then they were creating the so-called World Bank and the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe and Japan. Then Britain was getting out of Palestine, that they struck a deal with America and the Jews that were being chased away from majority of Europe, that now we can create space for you somewhere. Uganda was a proposal, but finally they settled for Palestine. Now, when they settled there, the gradual policy was that they would, the parts they would leave, the occupying forces, the Israelis would occupy. They would not allow the Palestinians to remain there. And then there was a funder, because the Israeli ambassador was talking about history, and he said we must be understanding, we must have a firm grasp of the historical facts. There was a very rich guy in America, the Rockefeller, there should be Rockefeller. And he was funding, probably he was also a Jew, he was funding all the activities of occupying the Palestinian land in the present day so-called state of Israel. And he pumped in a lot of money that wherever the Israelis, whichever Jew wanted to come, whether it was in form of a group or an individual, and he could till as much as he could, he would give money for tractors, for seeds and what have you. So big chunks of land. Forget about the 1967 war, which Israel, of course, that was fought by America, used to capture Sinai, Golan Heights, and other areas that have never been returned. There have been progressive, systematic grabbing of land by the occupying forces of Israel within Palestine, where they have been expanding themselves. When you look at the map from 1948 up to the present day map, you wonder what has been happening. From that time up to now, the intention of the occupying forces of Israel is to make sure that even the so-called Gaza Strip, which is an open prison, by the way, so many, close to about 3 million people, are in that strip of land. And when somebody talks about, because I have heard this also being paraded, these falsehoods being paraded, okay, Hamas is the fighting arm of the People's Liberation Movement, the PLO, People Liberation Organization. The only People Liberation Organization leader was Arafat, was Arafat, the Yasser Arafat. This, with all due respect, this brother of ours here, Mahmoud Abbas, with all due respect, if there is any for him, is just a creation of the Israeli state and the cousins. They have put him there. And that they are the very people who are now describing Hamas as a rebel outfit. It is a fighting arm. Like we had a revolution in South Africa to overthrow apartheid, and then there was a fighting Mukompo wa Uziziwe, the spear. You see, there is no way, therefore, you can describe the fighting arm of the liberation movement in South Africa fighting apartheid, and you call them a rebel outfit. And the schemes of America and her cousins are also well known. A man like the late Nelson Madiba Mandela was struck off the list of terrorists just recently, even after he had become a president. Now, do you expect, therefore, that we should sympathize and understand the America which supports Israel? After all, they are all of the same kind.
But I think on that
America herself, the present day Americans as we know them, where did they come from? What did they do to the original Americans, whom they referred to as the Red Indians? So their support for the aggression and the everyday massacre, the human rights atrocities that the state of Israel is committing against the Palestinians cannot be excused by anybody, including somebody, because the lies that are being paraded on the media, CNN, BBC, where some Al Jazeera, all the major medias that have been captured, and they are the frontiers of the state of Israel and America and the entire Europe, which seem to be supporting Israel, is also very well known.
Yeah,
therefore,
because
there is absolutely, in my opinion, we are not talking about perfect situations. No, there are no perfect situations. Like we say, there is a proverb in Nyankore, so there is no way we can be fighting and you say, hey man, you are now touching the behind of my buttock. It is a fight. So there is no decency in fighting.
Yeah, because
fight.
When you talk about, I think, and the members will talk about this, when you look at the activities of the Hamas, I think they're far different from the fighting of like the ANC during apartheid.
I will explain that.
And also this
Hezbollah?
of course, and the Hezbollahs. But also, like we said at the beginning, that and it's the same problem we're having here in Congo. When the country becomes porous and prone to insurgency, the other fighters that nearby the places can take advantage. We until recently, I think they're still there. Much as we're struggling with ADF from Congo, we also have the Al-Shabaab who are training there. So it is possible that the behavior of the Hamas, the behavior of the Hezbollahs are linked to the Islamic State because of the religious ideology. It's also possible.
Now, there is this issue of fundamentalism, and the Western countries are very good at branding others. Truth of the matter is that whereas we may have sections of the fighting groups in the Middle East, because you had coined that one also. Yes, we understand that, for instance, there has been trouble in Syria. We understand, and it was at the peak until Russia intervened and Assad was kept in power, and all of a sudden, the destruction of Syria, by the way, which has not been rebuilt, kind of came to a halt, with the also coming in of Turkey, the Erdogan. What is the name again? The correct pronunciation of the president
Erdogan.
Yes.
Erdogan.
Now, we also know that if it was not for the current president of Turkey, for instance, the activities of America in Turkey, that country was also going to go to the dogs because they had external hand which wanted to destabilize the internal politics of the country. We also know that they had created rebels within Turkey itself. At the same time, we know what has been happening around the entire Middle East now. We know what has been happening in for instance, Iran. Up to now, the schemes of developing of nuclear arms, then the deal that they struck with Europe and America, then when Trump comes into power, he undoes what Barack Obama had done. We are aware of all the interests of China and Russia vis-a-vis the interests of America. But the point I'm making here is that the troubles, the trouble, we know first what has been happening in Saudi Arabia, but the troubles in Palestine and Israel, it should, in my opinion, should form our focus. The reason being that the moment we start scattering and going to look at Assad, Turkey, Iran, we are going to lose this point. And I'm saying that our emphasis being in the occupying forces of Israel is because it exposes the hypocrisy of the Western Europe and America. That they are the dramas and the talkers of the human rights, protection of the human rights. And right in front of them, they are not only watching, but they are also supporting. The many times that the Secretary of State, the American Secretary of State, has moved to Israel, not tell them to stop killing babies, bombing indiscriminately, that small strip that has been an open prison for many years, but to encourage them to go ahead and probably implement the plan that the Prime Minister, what is the name
Mohammed
again?
Abbas.
No, the Prime Minister of Israel went to, at one time he went to America and he read to them the plan that he has. The only entry point, the possible entry point which without restrictions of America into the Middle East is Israel. And the moment they capture the entire thing and they capture the entire geography and they expand themselves and create that Israel, they are going to have a proper uninterrupted launching pad for American interest in the Middle East. That one is without doubt.
Do you have to be in the Middle East anyway?
They have to be there.
The operation is not being.
They have to be there. You see,
Rachel is
I
saying
think
something.
also, aside from what is being talked about at this time, the tag talks about who is at fault. Neither of those parties is at fault.
In a conflict, of course, there's no right one.
For the simple reason that the ambassador talked about examining the historical aspect. The fact of the matter is that at some point, years and years ago, Israel was in that space. No one is contesting that. In intervening years, descendants or ancestors of the Palestinians occupied those very spaces. And over the historical journey, those two peoples have interchangeably occupied those lands. Nobody's contesting that. But I think the true reason for the intractable nature of this conflict is that there is one group that seeks, or extremists, in either camp are the problem. There are Palestinians who don't believe Israel has any business talking about having roots in that part of the world. Extremists in Israel also claim the people of Palestine have no business having any claim to that land. But those positions are not accurate. If you're telling us to examine the historical facts, we can trace both parties' occupation of those places many, many years ago.
Yeah, but now the ambassador is saying that officially, Israel left Gaza in 2015.
2006.
I think
2005.
I think that claim is disingenuous.
But now that what happens it's like I think it's Ndugu or
Did
Tuko
they
said.
leave?
No, that's what I was trying to say. That claim is disingenuous. For the simple reason, it's just, we've been arguing over here for a great many days that Britain never left Uganda, for example, or France never left Niger. So we say Israel never left Palestine. For the simple reason, you can't say you left when you have all the levers. You lock the door, you secure the kitchen, you're in the sitting room, and you say, I'm no longer in that house.
You determine what
How?
comes into
Because
Gaza and
You
what
decide
goes out of
if
Gaza.
medication comes in.
Because you are throwing, using the same to throw rockets at my
Since
house.
they entered
No, what
the
we are saying-
hospital, how many Hamas rebels have they gotten from there? They entered the hospital, where over 50 babies have died since that
I
time.
think-
Yeah, but they're also saying Hamas was using the hospital to
How
Ndugu
many
Mututa.
Hamas rebels have they captured since they
Ndugu
entered on
Mututa.
foot now?
Do you know why, even before you come in,
Yeah,
do you know
before he
why
comes
South Africa has a breathing space? Because they gave up the claim that these white people have no business talking about existing in the space that is South Africa. The white people who are there now, many of their roots date back 300 years. Many of those people have no real engagement with Europe. Some, I'm sure, have never been to Europe, but they look like Europeans. So where do you want me to go? The reason why that conflict is intractable is because Palestinians, extremists, are disingenuous. Israeli extremists are also telling themselves lies. The day that both parties agree that they both have an equal stake in this equation, the peace process will begin. The true peace process. Stop saying that Zionists will kill every Palestinian. That is a non-starter. For Palestinians to say, look, we'll kill every Israelite, is a non-starter. It is a recipe for this conflict continuing for the next 2,000 years. The day South Africa, and South Africa is a good example because it has parallels that are nearer to the Israeli struggle.
Yeah.
They realized that this thing of saying one settler, one bullet, will never allow peace to come to that country. They have been there. In fact, there are people who say, historians, that there are people in Rwanda, for example, even Western Uganda, who can trace their roots to Ethiopia. Am I right? Or
Yeah,
not?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
That's a historical fact.
if those people came from here, and I know they will not, and went back to Ethiopia and said, look, we came from here. That is what Israel did. And then the people of Ethiopia will say, you have never been. And those people are serious. Say, look, grandfather so and so shows that I came from here. Okay. Israel, no one invited them there. Britain did this thing. But we are saying the only way forward is for Palestine to realize this thing is here. And for Israel to realize these people are here and they are not going. So stop the lying and the masquerading. The people of Palestine, as we know them, have a very real stake and they are not going anywhere. Because I don't see Israel killing 3 million people in the short term. Maybe in the long term.
They are approaching 1 million. They are over 1 million now. And they have managed to remove the entire population from Gaza, from the northern part to the southern part. They have opened the corridor. Others are moving to Egypt. And probably my information really,
they will drive them into the water?
is one. Who is defeating the principle of a two-state solution?
Well, it is very easy. It is Israel and her cousins. For the simple reason that you want to occupy every last bit. But that is not
but
justice.
you know, Israel, I think
even before you come in, if Hitler was wrong to try and pick off every last Israelite, stopping at the mark they tell us of 6 million, you are also wrong for trying to finish off the people of Palestine. It is that simple.
And the Israelis should know better than anybody else.
If you
that
keep reminding
killing
us.
is not a solution.
What we are saying is, Ms. Ndugu Mututa, and I hope the ambassador will be in a position to throw more light on this argument.
Did you tell him to listen in?
Please
Is he listening?
do not say the people of Palestine don't have a stake
And he's
on
not
the
saying-
land that is
I think
called
the
Israel.
Israel is not saying that.
Okay, then
Israel-
find a viable answer.
What Israel is saying, let Palestinians be Palestinians.
How?
Understand?
How?
That's
In
what
where?
I'm
In
saying.
space?
But-
You know
which
the issue is
land?
land. In
As-
space?
I think the issue of the biggest issue is not the issue of land.
Oh, what
Is
is
The
what?
biggest issue, the issue of violence.
It is a lie. It is a lie.
Yes.
It is a lie.
Ndugu
That-
Mtuta,
Ndugu
that
Mtuta,
is not true.
It is a lie.
Okay, let
No,
Ndugu-
wait a
Ndugu-
minute. Wait
The
a minute.
settlements-
Let's have
No,
it
let
here.
Ndugu- let
Let's have
Ndugu-
it here as Ndugu.
Then why are they
Ndugu what
settling
is
in
coming
Palestine?
Look, this is what it is. There is no way the Israelites can deceive us. We are not naive. The issue is about land. From when they were told that they should stop grabbing the land,
you know,
how
you
many
people-
pieces of land have they grabbed?
you people,
what
what
was the original size of the present day state of Israel? And what is by 1948? And what is the size now? All they grabbed the land by 1967, the Golan Heights, the Sinai, and where are they now? What about every day grabbing the land and doing what we call illegal construction?
But
Where
even-
are they constructing the
I'm
illegal
not
structures
speaking
on?
for Israel, but even the,
You nearly
the,
are.
the Gaza Strip was in the hands of Egyptians.
Thank you, Comrade Mututa. I want to pick from where my sister Takali had stopped. That you have South Africans who have European origin, but cannot even go back to where
They came from.
they are claimed to be coming from. Why? Because so many years after, they do not even know who their relatives are. Human nature, humans naturally are land grabbers. It's a fact. Historically, my brother Council Rugarama will tell you that I was reading about the history of Uganda, and the indigenous people in Uganda are not us who are seated here, who are running this country. The indigenous people are the Ik who have been relegated to the mountains of Karamoja. When the Nilohamites were migrating, they came and grabbed their land. They pushed them. In the process of running away, they ended up in the V part of our map. They are hiding there. But these are the owners, the indigenous people of this country. When you go to the south, they tell us, the history tells us the Batwa are part of the indigenous people of this country. But the Bantu came and occupied the land, and they have been relegated to the most poorest community. So in other words, nature tells us, or history tells us, that human nature is naturally, they are grabbers in nature. They have been grabbing land since time immemorial. The question now is, as Sister Takali has been saying, that now that the Jews have settled, now that we, the Ugandans, have settled here, the Ites or the Acholi, we are all land grabbers, but we have settled. The question now is, there must be a minimum agreement between the communities living in that society, where they can sit down and agree on how to run Palestine.
Yes.
The original Palestine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now
Where
that
you have both,
where you have
both
settled,
Palestinians and the Jews existing
yes,
together.
when you have settled, the problem does now become land. It becomes on the relationship.
Exactly. But if you go back, if the Ik continue fighting, fighting us, fighting the Karamojong, they can survive.
Push more.
They can survive. Why? Because they may end up being completely put out of existence.
Exactly.
Or if they will relegate them to South Sudan or somewhere else. So the point is that, you know, I was listening to the president one time, why he created a constituency in Karenga, but by then it was Kabong district, which had less than 3,000 voters. And his explanation was, these are the owners of Uganda, and we have put them in, there is a threat of
extinction.
Extinction. So I am simply protecting the owners of the country by giving them autonomy, because even in Kabong where they were existing, they had no say whether in local governments. They were completely isolated and relegated. So the point is that moving forward, if the two-state solution cannot work. Can there be a situation where there is a minimum agreement between the Palestinian people and the Jews? Because so many years later, these people have lived there. I have been to Tel Aviv. There are shops of Palestinians in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
There are businessmen in Jerusalem, the tourism city of Israel.
And Arab Israelis, even in
and
Parliament.
Arab Israel, yes, exactly. When you go to the Al-Qasa Mosque, that is being fought, and they're saying that, that the Jerusalem, why the Palestinians are saying Jerusalem is our capital because of the mosque. If you go there, you find, much as the mosque is guarded, people are freely entering to pray and getting out. So the point is, what is the issue?
Controlled by who?
Yes, the issue is control. But what is raising the control is the friction that has been existing.
The relationship, exactly.
I think the debate should now shift away from fighting, because the capacity of Israel has multiplied over years, and I do not think that at the moment the Gazians or the Palestinians have the capacity to alienate Israel completely. They may be able to cause harm, but they do not have the capacity to eliminate them. The conversation should now shift and say, how do we coexist as a people?
So you have to be sure that Israel does not want to do what we fear that the so-called Hamas and the Hezbollah want to do to the Israelis. The discussion here, like you have put it, it should be, okay, what has been the problem? The problem is that the state of Israel, described as the occupying forces, has been over the years grabbing land on more land. To the extent that even their own very friend, President Barack Obama, once said that what the Israeli state is doing in Palestine is unattainable. You can't keep doing what you are doing, thinking that the children born by the Palestinians are going to live under these conditions until they grow to become big men and women, and they are going to watch and keep quiet. That is not going to be sustainable. What we needed to do, and remember, during his time, is when we were having the two-state solution, which was defeated by who? Israelites themselves. Why? Whatever they are doing every day of grabbing more land and doing what we call illegal construction, you go to UNESCO, you go to UN. Apart from the veto, which is done by America in majority of the cases, and France and Britain, who are simply the perpetrators of the same crimes that the Israelis are doing, tell me, which other sober country, nation, supports the activities of the state of Israel? Are they all nuts? They don't understand the history of the Palestine and the Israel.
Yeah, but also at the same time, when you look at the history and the background, like Rachel was putting it, I think the problem goes beyond the respective administrative sections, because the PLO has been in existence and also Israel has been in existence. And we have had cases when these two leaders have tried to meet. But I think I also would buy in the idea of the ambassador of saying that there is also, I think, need to have a distinction between the Palestinian leadership and the Hamas. Because there are certain things that the Palestinian leadership may not want to do. And you remember there's the leadership of the former head of the Palestinian group.
Yes, Arafat or Mahmoud Abbas.
There was a group that the Hamas took over. And those ones, they were throwing over the roofs. the immediate, because remember that Hamas also came in as a fighting within themselves and took over the group which was there, and they began killing them. And I'm sure the Palestinian Authority will not want that to happen. But they sometimes, like they say, desperate times also sometimes call for desperate measures. But what needs to be done is a sober discussion between these two forces, because the Israel is not going to go out from that place. Palestinians are not going to be wiped out of that place. Then what happens? Because we're now, after every 1 or 2 years, the rockets are flying either side. And for how long that's going to happen?
And let us also not forget that as the rockets are flying, the occupation of Israel on the Palestinian people, be it in the West Bank, be it in the Gaza, is an everyday occurrence. We should ask ourselves, it is claimed that the Hamas claimed responsibility of the so-called 1,500 people of Israelites who died. Question now is, how come that the occupying forces, the state of Israel, has been killing people in West Bank, which is different from, controlled by, call them Hezbollah, which is different from the claims that were made by the Hamas, who are in the strip of Gaza. Why are they going to West Bank?
I hope next week also we can have these three groups, and it would have been very interesting hearing from each of them speak, because we may not be on ground to tell exactly certain things. Of course, all of us, I think most of us have been to Israel and have been to that area. In fact, the last time I was there, I went online and booked a hotel. And when I was at the hotel, I called the driver to come and take me to a hotel. And then the driver comes, and when he looks at the booking, said, "You want to go here?" I'm like, "Yes, that's where I've booked." Say, "But this is in another territory, we can't go there." I said, "Why?" Say, "Me, I cannot cross over to the Hamas group because that is where they control." So I mean, this. And apparently, I was laughing when you people were talking about fighting over land. I'm looking at the land you are talking about, the rocks and the stones. But you know, land.
But we know Israel's prowess in
they
converting that into profitable ventures.
Exactly.
We know their prowess.
They even took your soil from here.
When you go to, on your way from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, you will see huge farms in those rocks.
Yeah.
And
in deserts.
unbelievably,
yes.
You cannot believe
that is in the desert.
Amount of farming that is taking place on those rocks.
So those rocks can be made to...
Yes, the rocks have made...
Do you know how much Rockefeller invested in the state of Israel to promote agriculture for purposes of making sure that we effectively put the grabbed land of the Palestinians under effective cultivation? A lot of billions of dollars was put there. Maybe we should also ask ourselves, how come that, for instance, now when we have got everyday occurrence of the abuse of human rights, what the UN is, I mean the UN Security Council is doing is to bring a resolution after a resolution, which suddenly they know if it is brought by Russia, it will be defeated by France, Britain, and America. If it is brought by America, it will be defeated by a veto from China and Russia. But every day, in all that, every day, the children are dying. The women and disabled people are getting, even the business comes to a standstill. There's no water, there is no hospital, facilities, there is no electricity, there is no internet. We have got the media, just CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, all focused on that small strip of Gaza. What at the end of the day is the entire world doing on the situation in the Gaza Strip? What
I think also,
Ndugu
Mututa, I think whenever we find ourselves in situations that are not moving as they should, and certainly Israel and Palestine are that place, because if you've been at it over 100 years and this thing is not moving as it should, then it's a time to really reconsider. I know that the people in the Western world don't often think that other peoples in the world can actually add to them. There are places in this world where people have found a way around such an environment. I'm thinking the company that Israel is keeping is not helping. I'm not saying they should divorce America, but America is not suited to give good answers because they are the helm of people who exterminate others for their own gain.
But
even before you come in, coming nearer home, the example of President Museveni. President Museveni has his own issues, but when it comes to finding how to live with people who do not agree with him, I think he's head and shoulders above many others. In other words, if the people of Israel cannot find answers in Germany and in Britain and in Romania, there are other parts of the world where they could benchmark. Even South Africa. It is time for Israel and Palestine to look for answers where they cannot find them to date. Go to South Africa. How did they answer this intractable resistance of the people they found there?
But maybe...
Why do you keep doing the same thing and expecting different results?
Was it you or Ndugu Rugarama who said the extremism? Because
in either camp?
Yes, if Hamas saying we have to finish you, then Israel will have to say we also have to finish you. So then the gap of discussion widens, that you may not have the ready answers on the peace. So actually, I think the ambassador saying something on that as we wind up. I think we can have that clip when he was talking about, when I was asking him about the peace, then what will be? Because we're not going to fight forever. Can we have a solution to this? There's something he said. I think you can give us that clip of the ambassador as I was talking to him.
That notwithstanding, of course, most of this we read in the media, but it is also important to bring us up to speed for purposes of peace, to have a peace settlement once and for all.
Do you know anybody that is willing to negotiate with ADF, with Al-Shabaab, with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda? I haven't heard, not on CNN, not any other place. And you see, this is what we found in a few villages, the flag of ISIS that Hamas brought. So the only thing that we have to do with the Hamas is to take them out. That's the only deal we have with them. There are people and organizations with whom you can talk, but when an organization holds a 10-month-old baby as hostage, there's nothing we can, should, or want to talk with him about.
So what, in your thinking, sir, what do you think will be the fate of the civilians who are within the Hamas areas of control?
No, there is a simple solution. Not simple, but at least straightforward. An unconditional surrender by the Hamas terrorist leadership. If they think that they care for the population, they should come out, surrender, give their arms, release the hostages, and that will be the end of it. But again, as they themselves say, they don't care about the population. They were asked, why don't you, not by Israeli reporters, they were asked by foreign reporters, why don't you allow the population, the civilian population, to go into the tunnels? You have 500 kilometers of tunnels. And they said, the tunnels are for us, not for the civilian population. The UN should take care of the civilian population.
Ambassador, of course, I'm aware that Israel has pointed fingers at some of the foreign countries that are supporting the Hamas, both from the Arab world and maybe beyond. Do you think there is a way you, as Israel, would be able to talk to some of those who are supporting Hamas? Because if they stop giving them the ammunition, they will not be able to attack Israel and its population.
Well, we have here two players. One is Iran, with which, of course, we don't have any dialogue. And the only aim of Iran is to get us, Israel, out of the Middle East.
So when you look at these hard lines, it becomes also very difficult to have a solution until maybe the parties that are involved will have to come and sit down on a table and say, I think enough is enough, then this is how we can move. Other than that, you see where the problem stands. Ndugu Rugarama, where
For me, my conclusion is very simple. Let us stop the pretense. We know who is behind the fueling of the conflict in the Middle East to start with, but particularly Israel-Palestine. What we need to do is simple. Let us not pretend that Israel is going to sit down or the Palestinians are going to sit down with either to have a solution. The international community should do its work.
Ndugu Otuko.
Well, I think it's important to note that on both sides, there are people who are willing to advance peace, peace agenda. If you looked at the time of Yasser Arafat, there are several Palestinians who are, I think, fed up of the conflict.
Exactly.
And they really wanted to see how best they would put a solution, a permanent solution to the matter. But unfortunately, as Rachel says, the extremists on both sides could not allow. And I think until the extremists get exhausted and realize that there is a problem, that they have failed to resolve the matter.
I'm saying we take them out.
The ambassador is saying the only solution is take them out. But as I said before, this is an ideology that will exist. That will exist from generation to generation, both on the Palestinian side and on Israel side. So I think appreciating, coming from the appreciation, as Africa, I want to conclude by saying that from the fight between Russia and Ukraine, and now Palestine versus Israel, there is an inevitable need for African people to develop military power.
Yes.
We must have our own industry where we are going to manufacture our own fighter planes, where we're going to manufacture our own weapons, so that in the event that Africa is attacked, we have a self-defense, self-relying military solution, so that we cannot depend on the West.
And Rachel?
I think I'd like to return to the point where we're saying that clearly these two camps are out of ideas. But I know there are ideas in other parts of the world. They should not be shy to engage those ones who have successfully undertaken such projects, the peace projects, and actually come out on top of the situation. That aside, we should also be taking very keen notes, very good notes from our brothers, the Arabs, who have stepped quite far from the dynamics that are entangling these two parties, determined to forge their own paths while paying lip service to their commitment to the Palestinian cause. I think they discovered that until these two extremes agree their own path, there is no use adding yourself to that equation.
Sure.
We must also do likewise.
Yeah, thank you so much. Viewer who has been with us for the last 2 hours, I know it's been a roller coaster. And finally, we're coming to the end of the program, and thank my co-panelists who have been on this program, Ndugu Rugarama, Ndugu Otuko, and Rachel, and also the production team that has been behind the camera and machines for enabling us to come to your sitting room or your social media, your phone, wherever you are getting us from. Until next week, when we'll be back with another episode of the Pan-African Friday. And like, you can use the number which we gave on the screen to also reach us and give us your comments, reviews that we can use in our subsequent programs. But when all said and done, we appreciate your time that you have been with us for the last 2 hours, and we'll continue thanking you and also asking you to continue being us whenever we come to your sitting room, whichever platform you are following us every Friday. Until next week is when we shall be back, and we say be blessed until then when we shall meet. Thank you so much.